Welcome to the Planning and Regulatory and Licensing Committee. Please note that this meeting will be recorded for subsequent broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. The public seating areas will be in view of the camera, and by entering the chamber and using the public seating area, members of the public are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings as outlined above. So the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Yeah, I think everyone else is here. Declarations of interest. No. There are no declarations of interest. So we go on to the planning applications. Agenda item 3, P180 377 3 Union Street, Merthyr Tydfil. And I think Hugh's taken us through this report.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the 31st of July Planning Committee was resolved not to accept the officer's recommendation to approve the application, and the committee were minded to refuse the applications for the reasons highlighted in the report, i.e. the lack of on-street parking and congestion and the impact on the conservation area. Committee are reminded that if the application is refused and the applicant appeals the decision, then committee have to nominate a member or members to defend the decision. The recommendation to approve the application subject condition remains. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions? No, I suppose we've gone through most of it before. Are there any comments? No? Is anyone proposing the motion? So,
ask the question, Steve. No.
There's no comments. So is anyone proposing the officer's recommendation? I'll propose it. Is there a seconder?
Just ask for clarity. What exactly are we?
So that is, Clive has just moved that recommendation. So if someone seconds it, then you will vote on that. So if you vote yes, you are voting for it to receive planning permission. Yeah. So you've all got that, yes?
Seconded. So if we take it to the vote then, thanks. Oh, you can change your mind if you want to. So the vote's not carried, you see. No, there were two people supported the officer's recommendation, 3 abstained and 5 voted no against the officer's recommendation. Yeah, so does anyone want to make an alternative amendment?
Well, I move that the application is refused.
Okay, Councillor Jones, thank you for that amendment. Does anybody second that amendment? And the reasons for that?
Okay, yeah, so I've got the reasons here. So, the introduction of holiday accommodation in a historic residential terrace street would not preserve or enhance the character or appearance of the Thomastown Conservation Area. As such, the proposal fails to comply with policy BW6 of the Merthyr Tydfil Local Development Plan. And the second reason, there are insufficient on-street car parking spaces to cater for increased demand that would arise from the proposed holiday accommodation. As such, the proposal would result in increased congestion in a street which is also used as a home school travel route for secondary school pupils, to the detriment of highway and pedestrian safety. The proposal therefore fails to comply with policy BW12 of the Merthyr Tydfil Local Development Plan.
Thank you. If we now vote on that amendment. So just to be clear, so you vote yes to refuse the application. Okay.
Yeah, so the planning permission's refused then.
Right, sorry, Clive. Only thing I need to ask now is, now you've refused it, if it does get appealed, which member or members would prepare the evidence on behalf of the council?
Yeah, thank you. I think Councillor John Thomas and Councillor Clive Jones. I forgot your surname there, Clive. Councillor Clive Jones and Councillor John Thomas. Unless any other councillors would like to volunteer as well.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Morgan.
Oh, agenda item 4 is P190118, the land opposite 1 to 4 Caradoc Street, Merthyr Tydfil. And Hugh's taking us through this one again.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, Councillor Salmon has requested that this application be reported to committee. As a result of the consultation exercise undertaken, there have been no objections. Following the publicity exercise undertaken, one objection has been received from the occupiers of 7 Well Street. In summary, the main planning objections raised are: the development has not been constructed in accordance with the previous permission, the building is too high, and the side door overlooks the objector's garden. The development is an eyesore. This proposal is almost identical to a recent planning permission granted in November 2018. The main difference being that the dwellings have been constructed approximately 0.6 of a metre closer to Caradoc Street. As highlighted in the report, this change from the previous permission is not significant and will not have any additional impact on the amenities of surrounding residents or the character or appearance of the area. Indeed, the removal of the side walkway from plot 1, which I'll show you in a minute on the slides, and its replacement with a small set of steps would improve the relationship of the development with neighbouring residents, notably the objector's property, 7 Well Street. So that's the application site we've got there in Caradoc Street, outlined in red. As you can see, it's that area of land there which is overgrown. Obviously, it's not only overgrown anymore because there's 2 properties on the site which are being constructed. So those are the 2 properties, identical really, but handed properties. And there we're talking about the side access from the utility room of the property down into the garden, and then an access here from the parking spaces at the front down into the side garden. 7 Well Street is that property there. So one of the issues the neighbour had was the overlooking from this door of the utility room into the garden area. So that's this is the ground floor of the property. So that's the dining room kitchen area. You can see the very small utility room there. You can outline the cabinets to the side of the utility room. So it's very small utility room, and then you're stepping down onto the garden to the side with a door there. That door has got obscure glazing in it, so you can't see through it. So that door, there's the front elevation of the 2 properties. As you can see, they're substantially completed, and they are, as I said, 0.6 of a metre closer to Caradoc Street. The height is exactly the same with the dwellings, slightly different in their position. That's the door at the moment to the utility room that the objector raises concern about overlooking. As you can see, it's raised above the level of the ground at the moment, but there's basically a step coming out of there, so it's 2 steps down into the garden level. That's probably a better view of the door. You can see at the back here as well, there's a patio door there. There is proposed to be a small decked area at the back, but again, there's a privacy screen at this location being provided, which is 1.8 metre high, with obscure glass within a wooden frame. And if you look at the conditions, they're both conditions to be retained as that. So that's the view I've taken as I'm standing in the utility room, just about to walk out of the utility room, which, if I could, down the steps. The photograph I've taken is above my head because I'm only 5'7", so I thought I'd take it for a six foot person. And as you can see, that's 7 Wells Street there. That's the parking area, but that's 7 Wells Street. As you see, just stepping out, you can see probably just the top of the door. But as you step down in the garden area, this close border fencing obscures any views. So the views are minimal out to that utility room, and the privacy glass already in there prevents any overlooking from inside anyway. So I should point out the previous application, and indeed when this application was originally submitted, there was a raised walkway along the side elevation of this property, which afforded slightly more, or indeed a little bit more, overlook into the properties in Wells Street. Following negotiation with the applicant during this application, that has been removed and replaced with a couple of single steps, which improves the overlooking issue. And also, as a result of that, there's been a privacy screen added to the decked area, which wasn't there previously, and also the obscure glaze in the window of the doors here has also been added. So the developer has gone some way to trying to appease the neighbouring resident by introducing elements of the scheme that actually limit any overlooking further than what was approved under the previous scheme. So with that in mind, the application is recommended for permission subject to the conditions highlighted on pages 22 and 23 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Are there any questions? Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chair. I just like to ask the officer, it's unusual, there's nothing wrong with it, but for a ward member, for a member outside the ward to sort of refer that to us. First question is what of you is to say, well, did Councillor Salmon give any particular reason why he was calling it to us? The other one is to ask for the ward members' comments, which is more common on the application. I'm sure Clive was going to do that anyway. But,
any other questions?
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, the answer to your question is on page 16 of the report. At the top, it says, Councillor Declan Salmon has requested that the application be reported to the Planning Committee to consider the revised layout of the development following the approval of the previous application and its impact on local residents. That's all he's put in the form that was submitted to the application.
can I try and explain a few things with this, because it is complex. As you see from the report, there was an original application. Well, it's going back a long time, because outline permission was given several years ago. But I think, I hope I'm right here in explaining this part, that what triggered off this further application is that the properties are being built, well, the actual size is 23.6 inches further forward than it should have been. And if anybody's had any experience of marking out the property, you've got to be spot on. So I am right, Hugh, that that's what triggered off this application for the members to know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and yeah, 23.5 inches, I'm assuming, is 0.6 metres, because I'm not very good in inches and feet, but I'll take your word for it, Councillor Jones.
And the objector, I've spoken on the phone about 3 times. I've been down to the property. This was months ago to view the complaint there and look at it from her back end onto this property. Is it all right? I'm trying to explain the answer to, so this is not a question, but it's an explanation of the question that Councillor Amos has posed. As a result, the planning department have reconsulted people around there, including the objector, on 3 occasions, and the first one was in May this year, and the other 2 subsequently followed. And as the report says, the enforcement officer has been up there, and Hugh Roberts himself has been up there to have a look at it. And as a consequence of these reconsultations, as Hugh has explained, there were some alterations made to this second application. And that's what happened. Now, the fact that Councillor Salmon, who's not a member of the committee, I mean, any member of the council can call in an application. I think at the time that he called it in, as he was said, by negotiation, there's been alterations. At that time in May, he wouldn't have known, that is right here, he wouldn't have known about the subsequent alterations that have taken place by negotiation. So that's trying to explain to Councillor Amos as to why this was called in. In fact, I may well have called it in myself at the time, but I was aware that there was reconsultation, well, certainly the one in May taking place, and the other 2. Oh, there. That's the answer to it. I've got 1 or 2 questions myself, Chair.
Did you want to ask your questions
yes,
next then?
because one of the objections, so we know about the 2-foot discrepancy, it's been mentioned on page 17, but one of the other objections was that the building is too high, causing the door to overlook the objector's garden, invading privacy. I would ask Hugh if he would explain to members, because I've been, well, the application in the question of height has not altered from the 2 of them. And I think that's important, because she's mentioned the height, but the first application was approved, and there was no, as I understand it, no query about the height. So the second application is, you know, the height is the same. And am I right too?
Yeah, the size of the dwellings hasn't changed. The height of them exactly the same as it was when we permitted them back last year.
So, you know, as far as the discrepancy about the 2 feet, that hasn't altered in any respect as far as the objector number 7 Wells Street. That's correct.
Yeah, the difference in 0.6 metres to where the properties were supposed to be developed and now is not a significant difference in terms of the levels of the land at all, and it wouldn't increase the height of the dwelling substantially.
And if you look at page 20, so I'll put these in the form of a question. The first paragraph, so the last sentence, it says both the window and the door have been fitted with observer glass, which prevents any overlooking into the private rear amenity areas serving these neighbouring properties. I am right that is putting obscure glass in the window of the door is one particular alteration that's
Yeah, that's happened through this application process, and actually the obscure glazing in the window and the door are there as we speak, so they're already been done. But there is a condition which is attached, which is suggested that make sure that they're obscure glazed thereafter, so in perpetuity.
And again, if you look at then the second paragraph down, which starts off, in order to further address the objective in respect of overlooking, boundary treatment details have been submitted as part of this application. The approved under permission P/180-292 elevated 1 metre wide walkway along the side elevation of plot 1 has been omitted. So I am right in saying that as another important factor, and it goes on to say the 1.8 metre high privacy screen is proposed to the rear patio area serving plot 1. Am I right in saying that you showed it in the presentation? That is the fence there, Hugh?
Yeah, just to clarify, there's a set of steps going up to the proposed car parking areas, which here there's a set of steps now which is being proposed from the utility room side door. What the original application had, the previous permission, and indeed the first plan submitted with this application had, was really a raised walkway across the entire side elevation that actually returned back into the patio area at the back. That's been omitted, as you can see, and now we've literally got 2 steps down onto the garden and 2 steps up into the parking area to the front. Yeah, the privacy screen, as you can see here, you can see that it is an acute angle, slight acute angle back to actually 7 Wells Street, and it really overlooks the parking area more than anything else. But for belts and braces, the applicant has suggested putting a privacy screen 1.8 metre high along that boundary. It's finished in a timber frame with again obscure glazing in the timber frame. So yeah, there's in my opinion there's definitely benefits from the amendments that have come forward in terms of the overlook into the neighbouring properties.
And Chair, through, could I ask Hugh to scroll back where you could see the property, I think, where all the bushes were before they were built, and in relation then to where 7 Wells Street is? That's the distance, I think, from there to there, where the plot 1 is built, is 4 metres, is that correct? So the omission of the 1 metre wide walkway to the side plot is deemed beneficial, well, it's been said, in terms of reducing any overlook into the existing properties of Wells Street. And likewise, the introduction of a privacy screen to the rear patio area plot 1 will also limit in any overlooking possibilities to neighbouring residents in 1 Wells Street. I am right in saying that, in view of what the questions I've asked, that you as the planners have done everything to mitigate the issue of one of the objections, which was overlooking.
Yes, in my opinion, this scheme, current scheme, is far better in terms of overlooking than the scheme we permitted previously. Although obviously that was acceptable on its own, but this goes further to limit any overlooking to the neighbouring residents. Yes.
And one last question, and that's in relation, because the objector has mentioned twice about the fact that she did not receive any of the letter of notification for the works, and she says in the last objection, 2 other applications were submitted last year, which the objector states she received no correspondence, and if she had, she would have objected. There was concern when I went to see this lady that I think I'm right in saying that certainly the neighbour next to her had the letter, but she hadn't. And I raised this matter in the planning department, and I was assured that the letters had been sent to the correct address. Unfortunately, in the valleys, and Merthyr Tydfil is no exception, we have various parts of the country, but in our case, where you've got street names are exactly the same. And perhaps could you answer that point here as well?
Yeah, we take all our addresses from our GIS system, which is an aerial database system, and they actually have postcodes on them. So it's not usual for the letters not to find their way. Obviously, we're reliant on, like everyone else, for the post office to deliver those letters. But going back, I've looked back at previous applications, and we've sent letters to those residents on the previous applications, all the relevant Wells Street applicants, and quite clearly the objector's received an application because she's objected to this application. So yeah, our records are clear. What happens when it leaves our office is out of our hands. We're in the hands of the post office, but we certainly put all our postcodes on it in accordance with our systems. Yeah. And as you say, the neighbours have received their letters. They've gone through exactly the same process. So it is unusual. It may be unfortunate, but the letters are sent from the department in that way.
So in this case, Chair, it would be addressed to the occupant at 7 Wells Street, Merthyr Tydfil, with the postcode there. So you would assume that it would have been, the letter would actually been delivered.
Perhaps it went to Kevin Coyd. There's a Wells Street there.
Yeah, well, I think that was the suggestion, to be honest with you, Chair, yeah. But I think, yeah, as I said, we can only look at our records. We obviously clear where we need to consult people from a planning point of view, and that's what we do from our systems, yeah.
I happen to know 7 Wells Street very well, because my daughter lives there.
Oh, Malcolm?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for clarity, it's nothing to do with the Post Office. Royal Mail are an entirely separate company to the Post Office. But to pick up on Clive's point on that, I do know it happens occasionally that things get misdirected because people hand them in to me where it's gone to the wrong village. But it happens very rarely, and it might happen once, but I'll be very surprised if more than one letter got astray. I can't see that as a possibility, to be honest. Just a quick thing. Did the developer give a reason why they built the house in the wrong place? Was it just an oversight? And how did we manage to pick up on that?
Yeah, our eyes in these circumstances are usually with local residents, and obviously the local resident raised a concern about the construction of the buildings next to it. We sent the enforcement officers up to measure the site, and then it was fined out. I'd be very surprised if most developments are actually built spot on, because I think Councillor Jones says it's very difficult to get developments spot on. If it was, you know, I don't know, 30 centimetres or something, would we be in this position now? Our main concern was really, can the car parking get in the front, because they've changed the size of the site. It's quite clearly shown in the plans they can. So yeah, it's really from our enforcement section and a complaint that we've come in. We may not be in this position if someone hadn't complained about the application. But sometimes we liaise quite closely with our building regulations section as well, and look at their applications to make sure that they both tie up. So their applications for plans application ties up with our planning permissions to make sure the designs are correct and they're in the right location as well. So there's numerous things we look at from a planning point of view, but you know, 8 times out of 10 it'll be a member of the public phoning up. It may have gone to the site, it might have been spot on, but in this case it was slightly out, so we requested a new application. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But overall, the planning department are satisfied this is actually a better application than the original one.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation on the picture of the houses. Are they supposed to be the same roof line height? Because one house looks actually taller than the other on that picture on the left hand. If you look at the picture on the left, the one house is slightly taller than the other. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, no, it's a good spot, and yes, they are supposed to be like that. Yes, that was as per original planning permission as well. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Are there any comments? Yeah, Clive?
Chair, I think the committee will gather from the line of the questions that I posed to Hugh that I think perhaps in one way it was a bit fortunate that this was brought to the attention of the planning department, and they've spent a lot of work both attending to going to the property, corresponding with the residents around there, including the objector, and reconsulting, I think from earlier this year, from May onwards, 3 times with the residents around there. And as a result of that, there are what I regard as quite important alterations which have been done by negotiation to limit what I consider to be the objector's number 1 objection, and that was overlooking. And I think as a result of that, we've done everything that can be possibly done to mitigate that situation.
Any other comments? Oh, well, does anyone propose the motion?
Yes, Chair, I would move the recommendation.
Scott seconds it, yeah. Well, yeah. So if we take it to the vote then. Oh, that's unanimous then. Next 2 items on the agenda, information reports. And item number 7, I've not got any other business, so that's the end of the meeting. Thanks for coming.